Hi, I'm Joe Tolles. Growing up in the foster care system, working within it, and single handedly raising 8 teens adopted from the foster care system has given me a unique view into that world. My reputation for working to keep children connected, healthy, and happy with families who love them is important to me. Who I am today is a far cry from what my circumstances might have dictated. To start, I had to navigate my own childhood hurdles to become the athlete, father, and therapist I am today. Together with child advocate specialist Renee Damon and our guest, I will highlight the issues that impacted me on my journey, issues that are most likely impacting children and families today. Join us as we examine my first steps out of the starting blocks and into the race.
Welcome back to Out of the Starting Blocks and Into the Race. My name is Renee Damon, and I am here with my host, Joe Tolles. Hello, Joe. It's your turn. You are up today.
I'm uh, I'm up today, huh?
You are.
I don't really know what that means, but we'll figure it out as we go along. When
It's your turn to talk about how you've been doing, Joe. I know that we talked about how I was and how the path to um, making our identity as speakers and teachers and putting what we want to out in the universe. We've been talking about how I was doing through this process and kind of just a little bit about me and identity formation. So I thought today would be great if you could share what's been going on with you through this process.
well, it's certainly been a year for me. I have had lots of health issues this year. Out of all of a sudden, I woke up and my body said, "You're old," and I'm not used to that. So, I've been seriously throwing some curveballs this year. First I had an eye injury playing tennis, and I was playing tennis, 4 days a week,
Right.
and feeling great. And then a ball hit my racket, and or I was trying to hit the ball. The ball ricocheted off my racket into my eye, which took me out of commission for a very long time. They were concerned about my eyesight and if would ever go back to normal. I'm happy to say that after several procedures, that my eye is fine. But whilst that was going on, or I guess just before that, I had seen my doctor who asked me if he had ever talked to me about having a heart murmur. And I said, no, you have never talked to me about having a heart murmur. And so I did have a heart murmur. And I was in New York when I was visiting him. And when I came back to Alabama, I went to the cardiologist at the heart center here. And they said that, yeah, you have uh, a significantly leaking mitral valve. And so that led me to open heart surgery. And
Yes.
that was big. You
That
know,
was huge. That was huge.
well, huge in a whole lot of ways. I mean, I first had to wrap my head around that I was having physical issues after feeling completely fine. Like,
Yeah.
nothing before, nothing really significantly before that. And I had to get used to the fact that I was vulnerable. And so being cracked open like a walnut, which is unfortunately what happened to me. Even during that process, I mean, it was hard. It was hard for me to sit still. I was incredibly uncomfortable, and it made me really think about, who I am and how vulnerable I am, and how, at least at that moment, I was no longer an athlete. I was imperfect in a sense. And then after that happened, I started getting significant swelling in my ankles. And then they told me my veins weren't working right. And
I
they,
know. It was back to back to back, it felt
yeah,
like. Oh,
well, it was. I mean, I have
yeah.
been out of commission. Well, off of my feet, really. The beginning of February was the open heart surgery. The eye was a little bit before that. Um, so it was just miserable. And um, certainly when you have, or at least I imagine it did happen to me, when you have something so significant happen to you, it really changes your perception of the world and how you fit in the world. I went from mostly being completely excited about waking up in the morning and, conquering the next thing, and there's still that's a huge part of who I am. I'm
Right.
certainly not finished, but to now sharing that thought with the fact that I might not be here.
Yeah.
It's certainly not up to me. Um, you start calculating, like, listen, it was just a mind, calculating, hey Siri, what's the average age of a American male? Like in all of those questions, and and
Sure.
and the answers weren't comforting at all. In that, oh shoot, I'm close, right? I'm close to sort of that average age. In addition, I had high school and college teammates that appeared seemingly healthy pass away. Quite a few of them this past year, while I was trying to recuperate and trying to be strong for my kids and trying to be strong for myself. So to sink my attention into one particular thing, sort of like the podcast, was difficult. It was sort of like now I have like huge ADHD, right? So, because I can't focus in on one thing because I'm concentrating on so many different things.
Right.
Everything is a distraction. Um, so, you know, obviously, I think that we have moved forward slower than we wanted to. I think it was a fantastic when I got the opportunity to get out of my house and go to Florida where we presented that at the conference. That was a real boost. I needed to do that.
Right.
There's some underlying fear, some underlying um, uncertainty, and then when that becomes part of your universe, or your at least your thought pattern, it really just makes everything else like I don't know what normal is anymore because I still have not been able to. And I don't know that I can. I don't know that I can't either. Like, I don't know that I can go back to tennis in the gym like I normally would, although I've been given the green light to do so.
Right.
You know,
So when I hear you, because I've been on this journey with you and through these operations and received the pictures to prove it, of the eye and the legs and the veins, and I have. And when I think about what you and I talk about in regards to identity formation, Joe, and all the conversations that we've had about, you know, you being an athlete and a runner and all of these things. And I know that having all of these medical things come up that you had to deal with and take care of, that that also had to shift how your thoughts were in regards to your identity and who you are now that you've had to have open heart surgery, that this has happened with your veins. And what has that process been kind of like looking at? And what does that feel like?
Uh, Truthfully, I don't know that I really have looked at it. I don't think I've processed it all. It stopped me in my tracks. Like just stopped me in my tracks. And um it just has been about a month, just over a month, where I thought about it and said, "Oh crap." Like I have been through a lot this year. And so that I could say that demonstrates how much I was not dealing with it or not trying to let it become part of my identity. I was just trying to ignore it while I did nothing that was normal, right? So, um, you know, the other thing that I did, I did this whole campaign for Foster Care Awareness Month, and during that time, I was recovering, and I covered some songs, um, and put them out there, sort of a campaign for Foster Care Awareness Month, and that sort of opened a different door or another way to ignore the fact that um, that I am not just yet where I want to be. Um, so on the one hand, there's still some processing to do. On the other hand, that's really blown open a whole different part of my existence here because music was such an important piece while I was growing up in foster care. I would write music and I would, you know, collect my pennies and go to a studio
Right,
and record them. And, I'm a pack rat, so I've got every picture that I possibly can, but I also have all the lyrics that I wrote. I have all of the cassette tapes of songs that I started or wanted to start. And so I started going through that, and now that's a piece of identity that is appealing to me. And I want to I so I'm just getting back to the point where it's like everything is possible. Like
right.
these are possibilities. It doesn't matter that I'm 66 years old. I'm going to go and become a pop star. Like
And that makes so much sense because identity is not static. It can be reclaimed, right? And that's kind of sounds like what you've kind of done is with the music and the lyrics and the writing and getting in the studio is that it was there one point and now you're 60 some odd years old and you're reclaiming that back.
you can say 66.
I couldn't remember if it was
Oh,
66 or 67, so I didn't want to say anything, Joe.
right. Um, yeah, I'm reclaiming who I am. So
Yeah,
I am, you know, and for I mean, I guess it was always there, but I ignored that part of me for such a long time. I didn't know that I could regain that excitement that I had when I was doing this when I was in my teens.
right,
So yes, but it also demonstrates how trauma can throw us right off of the track, and it is sometimes and very difficult to regain what you lost. So I'll never be the person I was before all of these medical issues. And that has nothing to do with performance.
right.
It has everything to do with mindset.
Mhm.
So I can try and become as close as that person, or if obviously my goal is to have people look at me and me look at me and say, "Wow, I couldn't tell." Right? I don't want to be able to tell that, I was able to hit a tennis ball and, you know, do cardio exercises as much as I did before. I'm looking forward to that day when I can just get back on there and it feels the same and I can do the same distance, I can do the same length of time. But I'm still not going to be, and in that is sort of strength and a reinforcement of
Absolutely.
some positivity towards, who I am. You know, when we overcome, you know, and resilience takes over, if we're mindful and have the right support systems, we are, I would argue that that's a very positive path toward, you know, creating a maybe a stronger, more resilient person.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like and now, just like now, what do we do, right?
Now,
And
now what do we do?
right, and so it doesn't mean that it's done and over with. It means that, it may take a few steps to get back to where we are. I'm glad, we've done this now, uh, 2 days in a row, which is no reason why we couldn't have been doing that the entire time.
Right. But
Um,
again, we go through our stuff. But like I said to you the other day, I said it always feels good when we're back in the groove of things and when we're talking about what kind of ignites our passion and our drive. Um, and I think that that's so important too. But I do, and when you were saying that, and I thought, but identity is not static, but we can reclaim it. And that sounds like such an easy statement, but exactly like you said, it's
it's-
it's not that easy, and it's definitely a process. Um,
you know why? Now, I don't know if this is my perception, but
okay,
I believe it's a true thing, because I'm just, as I reflect on the way that I look at the world. Once something happens to somebody that's so significant, like what I just outlined, the people around you look at you differently.
oh,
Their
absolutely,
their identity of you has changed. And so that's it just shows how closely, related what we think of ourselves is, resourced from what our loved ones or our people that we're close to think of us,
right,
you know. So my kids, it was much more difficult. I think they just would prefer to ignore the fact that, anything happened.
right,
Like, and they are fighting ferociously to see me as a person that is their strength, their foundation. I'm trying to infuse some reality into them. So, because, listen, things have happened now. Now I need to really seriously talk about a time that I may not be here. And those are hard conversations.
they are
Um,
hard conversations,
People who would call on me to do things may not call on me to do things because, oh no, he just had a heart attack. And I didn't have a heart attack, right? That's the generalization of like a heart procedure. It's like, we can't push him, or we shouldn't ask, or we can't ask. And then they put thoughts out there like, oh, he's not going to want to do that. He's not going to be strong enough to do that without
yeah.
asking, right? And I am not used to not being asked, right? So,
And when you talk about all that, it clicked in my head too. And I spoke about it at our last podcast. And I didn't think of that, but my circle of people and my circle of friends, when I lost all of my brothers in that short period of time, absolutely did that with me as well. Well, we can't ask Renee to do that because she's going through so much. Well, that happened the following year, and it just it kind of felt like they were kind of wrapping my own identity and putting it around like this is how she is right now. So we need to.
Right.
And I played, and I guess I'm going to ask you, but I kind of fed into that, Joe. Like I felt like I am person that just lost her whole family and I'm the victim here and I'm hurting here and I'm this and I'm all these things. And to get out from underneath that and again say to myself self that this isn't static. I can reclaim this and I can. So it's so hard when people shift and change and they change your identity of who you are by what you've just gone through.
Well, and
And I
and
found that to be frustrating.
well, and how we feed into that, right?
And
So
how we feed into it.
I,
Absolutely.
I don't feed into that very well. So um I anger people. Um, you know, they'll still ask, should you be doing that? Is that okay for you to do? But how I handle that and always have handled very stressful situations in my life is by isolating. So I move away from anybody that gives me that negative energy. I can't. So the biggest issue for me during this period was I don't have the strength to worry about you right now. I have to worry about me. And for me, that means I had to move away from the people that cared, that genuinely cared and wanted to ask. And I can't, you know, people would volunteer to, you know, come and take care of me. And no,
No,
not because they don't appreciate it. It's
I
because
know.
I can't feed into that. I won't. And so m- part of my recovery has always been sort of that isolation and let me just rest. Let me go sit in the corner and rest. And when I am ready, I'll be back. Um, a lot of people don't like that, but I can't. It's at that point, that it's serious enough. When I do that, it's serious enough that you have to leave me alone.
Right. And that space is much needed.
Right. I
Space.
mean, as much as I don't want to admit it, I'm going to pity myself enough.
Right.
I don't need your pity on top of that.
And because it becomes so heavy. And
Right.
again, you get stuck in that.
Right.
And I often think too, and I'm gonna relate this to our kids that are in foster care and hearing that messaging over and over and over and over about who they are and who they aren't. And it's, I mean, think about what we've been through this past year, what you've been through with all your medical stuff, what I've been through my family, and how that impacts us as adults
Right.
and trying to kind of scramble of what that identity looks like for who we are now that we've had this surgery, now that we've lost this person, and that shifts. And I take that back to these young kids in foster care and all of those different changes and things that happen for them. And they don't have a choice to become it, almost like they become those narratives and they live those narratives because that's what they're constantly hearing and hearing and hearing. And our identity is not, it's not just knowing about ourselves, but it's also what we've been told about ourselves.
Right.
And they go through
Absolutely.
that process. And again, that's why it's so important that we also talk about our journey of even as adults and having the tools to be able to go, okay, you know what? I need to step back, or I need to dive in, or I need to do this to help me reclaim back who I want to be or who I'm looking to be. And for the kids in foster care, it's not that easy of a journey, especially when people don't know and understand identity formation and what all these kids go through.
Well, kids are supposed to be dependent upon adults,
Mhm.
and adults often feel um, rejected when they can't fix something.
Right.
And so when we're talking about kids, it's like, I got this, throughout the years with my kids is that, oh, I don't understand why they're not grateful. I don't understand, you know, like why they would feel this way. Um, and there are reasons, I even had to be reminded. I mean, it's the story I always tell about Thanksgiving when they were there and like nobody said, not Thanksgiving, I'm sorry, a Father's Day. Nobody said Happy Father's Day. And, I left in my
Right.
car in a huff. And then I called a friend of mine who said, "What's the matter with you? They've never had a father." So,
Oh,
right. So it's about their experience. They didn't have to do that. It wasn't part of their tradition, right?
right.
And so what do they do with me? And on the other hand, I was in the same position. I never had, you know, I, so we were all a big mess in terms of figuring out what we do with holidays in general.
Mm,
And the 10 of us, we could have 10 different traditions or 10 people who don't have any traditions at all.
yeah.
And so we had to sort of build our own. And the more that we understand that, you know, this is what happens to all of us. We have experience, we have knowledge, we have, you know, more of a life journey than kids that don't. And they
Yes.
don't have, so therefore they have no tools to deal with this. And they're looking for us to provide those tools. And we're getting all pissed off because they're not responding to the tools that we're presenting them because they don't know how to use them. And
Right.
and so this is beyond kids. This is how adults interact with each other, right? We can be as confident as we want, and then we get a job, and then somebody treats us like we're not, uh, uh, not capable, um, and we start to think about like what's wrong with me.
I'm
So,
identifying with that, Joe. I am.
well, but it's everything, right? It's
It
every
is.
if we are caring and looking and feeling the vibrations of the world when somebody beeps at you when you're like, what did I do? Like, maybe nothing.
Yeah.
But
Right.
we immediately, I guess if we're, I was going to say an average person, we would first consider, did I do this? Did I cause this? What was my role in this? Um, so So it's been it's like, man, we picked a year though to start trying to listen. The other issue is I don't care, right? I'm going to deal with all of this stuff. I have not lost my desire to wake up every morning and find out, ooh, what's next?
Right.
I love that. What's next? What can I do now? Um, Whereas some of my kids are like, you should, if I were you, I'd be laying on a beach and, drinking a margarita. And I'm like, that's not going to bring me satisfaction. And so, um, I understand that when people, particularly people around my age, is like, why is he doing that? What's wrong with him? Um, and I respect the fact that somebody wants to do nothing. I just can't do nothing. you
Right.
know. Um, so I mean, it's very, very, very this whole identity formation thing. Um, I think it could be very interesting to everybody if they dare to look.
I agree with you. And we're going to dare them to look. So
We're gonna dare them to look.
we're going to dare them to look.
Yeah, so I'm working, I'm getting stronger every day. Um, and we'll get through this, you know.
We will.
And
And we,
and new things will be thrown at us, hopefully more positive than not. And we'll just keep plugging along.
we will. And we will keep everybody in the loop of what we're plugging along with. Because this has been a journey that Joe and I are going to continue on because we do have a mission and a passion behind what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we will continue to show up.
There you go. You have been listening to Out of the Starting Blocks and Into the Race. We welcome you each week or each episode to discuss and share. And please, if you feel the need and the want, please go leave comments and questions for us, and we might be able to talk about those things in future podcasts. And remember, the baggage that we carry throughout our lives becomes a lot lighter when we remember to make room for help.